A woman walking alone on her way home from a night out. A man walking away from his flat. The two will intersect with each other. The time is 10:42 p.m. A struggle appears to occur. The woman goes to the ground. She's injured in some way. The man is helping her along, or does he just have a constant hold on her? The time is 10:45 p.m. She's visibly in distress as she goes to the ground again. Once up, the man is walking her across the street, or is he forcing her across? The time is 10:54 p.m. He told her he was coming after her. Before we begin, we would like to send our deepest sympathies to the loved ones of Marta Chmielecka, who fell victim to the abominable acts described in this case. Marta Chmielecka was raised in the Polish city of Bydgoszcz. Its cobbled streets and old-world charm would draw people to the beauty of the city, frequently called Polish Venice because of its location on the canal. The main attractions sit next to the water: churches, an opera house, museums, recreational areas, and some very beautiful architecture. There are also large-scale murals, colorful urban artworks, and a certain art installation called Man Crossing a River that hangs above the waters. It commemorates Poland's entry into the European Union in 2004. Not much information is available about Marta's past history, including her family, but it does mention her parents were still living and she has one brother. Marta married a Polish man named Marta Chmielecka on July 29, 2016, and they moved to England in 2017 to be close to Marta's brother, his wife, and their children. They settled in Kettering, a county in Northamptonshire, England, 67 miles from London. Known for being a market and industrial town, it had a mixture of the charming and the modern, with places to dine and eat and be merry. But the outward appearance of the couple doesn't always show what's happening behind closed doors. Behind the smiles and the laughter on social media, Marta was dealing privately with a crushing fear of domestic violence and Powell's controlling habits. Incidents of domestic violence occurred between Marta and Powell in August of 2020, Easter of 2021, and September of 2021. The August 2020 incident was when he came to her workplace and confronted her, demanding to know about relationships with other men and making an obstacle of himself. He grabbed her phone to look for evidence of affairs. Powell then punched Marta several times, causing bruises on her back and face, along with a split lip. The police were called, and Marta made a statement but withdrew it later on. Powell apologized to his wife. In September of 2020, Marta built up the strength to separate from Powell and demand a divorce. She would start divorce proceedings in Poland when it was time. Getting Powell to cooperate would be difficult, but Marta was determined to see it through. Marta chose to remain in Kettering and create a new life for herself, but Powell's harassment continued in the form of phone calls and messages. Close friends of Marta had warned her to stay away from him. They knew he could be easily set off, and they were concerned for Marta's safety. Even so, Marta still tried to remain kind, staying in contact with him. Sometimes she would even stop over at his house of multiple occupancy, where he had a room, and would cook for him. The following year, on Easter of 2021, even though the two were separated, Powell became aggressive at a family party, pushing Marta around. Another incident was when he found Marta at the Warren pub. He grabbed her arm and became very intimidating towards her. The following month, in September, he was reported for harassment. Marta had been warned again by her friends to stay away from him. He was bad news for her, and being separated from him seemed to just add fuel to the fire. It was as if seeing Marta have a life without him enraged him even more. In early October of 2021, Marta's mother came from Poland for a visit, and the two of them planned a festive trip home so that Marta could see her father. Sadly, the trip would never come to fruition. On the night of October the 15th, tragedy would strike. Marta had been working some long days at her job with Siva in Corby. The date was Friday, October the 15th, 2021. When Marta got off work, she headed to the residence of her friend Daria. Marta changed into clothes to go out that evening. She'd brought a big white overnight bag with her containing the things that she would need. Throughout the evening, Marta had been sending provocative text messages to Alexandru, a man that she worked with, and in between those texts, she would also receive texts from Pavel, begging her to come over so they could talk. Apparently, the day before, she had sent him a text telling him to leave her alone and that she had had enough. The text coming in that night had been uncomfortable, to say the least. Pavel refused to give up. In the midst of everything going on, it seemed that Pavel had been telling his friends that he couldn't stand the thought of someone else touching Marta, so things were escalating. On that very same night, he was frantically trying to find out where she was and who she was with. Pavel even got in touch with a friend who lived near Daria to see if she was at home. When Pavel's friend told him that she was not there, he changed tactics and started bugging Marta to pick up a pizza to bring to him. He was going to get Marta to his residence, one way or another. Throughout the night, he continued to text and even call Marta, leaving an ominous voicemail message that said, "I'm on my way to get you." At 10:40 p.m., Marta left Daria's home at Woodlands Court, heading along Wood Street towards Rockingham Road to the place where she was living. Pavel left his home, walking along Bath Road and down Wood Street, hoping to intercept Marta. How he found out where she was is unsure at this time. What happened was not what a normal person would expect. Marta had been walking along at a steady pace without any difficulty. She was captured on CCTV, which of course is used widely throughout the UK. London is one of the most heavily monitored cities in the world, and rightly so. The threat of terrorism is constant, and the CCTV helps to mitigate this by providing surveillance 365 days a year to counter that threat. The next thing that's seen is Pavel holding her arm, and then they struggle in the street and on the sidewalk. Then they go out of camera view. But when you see Marta the next time, she is walking along with difficulty, at times collapsing to the street. Following the struggle out of view of the cameras, Marta appeared disoriented and upset, all the while being pushed from behind by Pavel as they made their way down the sidewalk. Pavel put her in a bear hug as they neared his home, forcibly pushing her along. A Ring doorbell recorded Marta coughing and also showed that she was staggering now, as though she may have been quite injured. Pavel can be heard saying, "Come on, not far now. Can you hear me?" At 10:56 p.m., footage reveals the last time Marta was seen alive. Once Pavel got Marta inside his bedroom, he grabbed her phone and began checking her messages. He was looking for proof of any romantic relationships she was involved in. Pavel took photos with his phone of texts that he found. He also took photos of himself hovering over Marta in a threatening stance. Marta must have been utterly terrified. It is believed Pavel then killed Marta soon after in a vicious attack by stabbing her to death. A post-mortem would show there had been 32 penetrating force injuries, 5 to her shoulders and upper arm, 1 to the left breast, 19 to the face and neck, and 17 to the right hand from Marta throwing up her hand in defense and trying to protect herself. The stab wounds to the neck were the direct cause of death. If the carotid or jugular are cut, the victim will rapidly bleed to death in about 5 to 15 seconds. Marta's body would be going into shock as she was dying. 2 days after the night Pavel murdered Marta, he is captured on video walking down the street and then entering a shop to buy several cans of beer. It was just as if it was any normal day. No thought to the fact that he had just murdered his wife days earlier. 4 days later, Marta's family contacted the police. She'd not reported for work, and they had been receiving suspicious texts that didn't sound like her at all. They believed someone else was using her phone and sending the texts. The police would investigate due to the previous domestic issues between Powell and Marta. When they raided his flat, they found him lying on his side on the bed beside the deceased body of Marta. She was half-clothed, wrapped in a blood-stained duvet or comforter quilt. Powell had a knife embedded in his own neck. He had up to 9 self-inflicted neck wounds. He had been trying to kill himself. Powell was bleeding heavily. He was rushed to the hospital where emergency surgery could be performed for his injuries. There were 2 suicide notes that he had written in Polish. Powell also wrote why he killed Marta. His reasoning behind it had been for her alleged lies and infidelity, fabrications he had created in his mind from his burning jealousy and the belief that she only belonged to him.
You have 60 seconds to open this door before I kick it down. Open the door. Pavel! Stay there. He's got a knife in his neck.
The residents of Kettering Street were in shock when they learned about the murder of a woman who lived in their neighborhood. One man said it was relatively quiet around the area, other than the occasional drunk or a drug deal going on in a nearby alleyway. The man was just in total disbelief that such a violent murder had happened so close to his home. Another neighbor said they had come home to find the area taped off and the place crawling with police officers. Someone also commented that a car was taken away by wrecker, more than likely to the police impound lot to be processed. So much was going on as the onlookers just stood back and watched. One big concern on their minds was, had the killer been detained and in custody? Then they would see Powell being rushed into an ambulance, and eventually Marta's body would be removed after the evidence had been collected. They all had their answer. On October the 21st, after Powell's injuries were confirmed as non-life-threatening, he was arrested in his hospital bed on suspicion of Marta's murder. He was under guard around the clock. Days later, detectives wanted to interview him about what had happened and his part of the incident, but he refused to cooperate with them. Throughout the investigation, Powell at times refused to cooperate. Even though he had initially admitted to the murder, he would attempt to manipulate the court process, denying that he had been physically abusive towards Marta. Detectives found Powell a jealous and controlling man, stalking, making threats, and being violent towards Marta since the relationship had ended. When Powell was well enough and had recovered from his injuries, he was brought before the Northampton Crown Court on March 3, 2022, and finally admitted that he killed Marta. The slight woman that Marta was with her tiny frame did not have a chance against the huge, threatening husband. Marta's family was in attendance at the sentencing. During that time, Judge David Herbert said, "It is clear that Marta was afraid of you and was frightened you would end up killing her. Those last moments of her life would have been utterly terrifying as you stabbed her repeatedly in the neck." Her family stated in a BBC interview, "Losing Marta has changed our whole lives. None of us will ever be the same." Powell was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 18 years and 4 months. After already spending 682 days in custody, he will spend 16 years and 170 days in prison before he can be considered for parole. If the parole board considers his release, he will remain on license until the end of his life. A license is a set of rules or conditions that an individual must adhere to when in the community. Breach of a license will result in the individual being brought back to prison. Detective Superintendent Joe Banfield led the inquiry for the Northamptonshire Police. He said, Marta Chmielecka did not want to accept the end of his relationship with Marta and remained in contact with her despite her attempts to distance herself from him. Speaking after the case, Detective Superintendent Joe Banfield said, Marta Chmielecka was a much-loved young woman looking forward to a bright future, which was extinguished by the violent actions of a jealous man.
Marta's family have requested that I read out the following statement on their behalf, and I shall do so now. Marta was exceptional. She was full of life, she was kind, cheerful, helpful and smart. You never had to ask her for help. She was always just there for us, whatever we needed. She loved our children and was a fantastic auntie to them both. Marta was definitely a daddy's girl too. They had such a bond and such a loving relationship. After her death, her father began stuttering and now finds it very hard to communicate at all. He has really suffered, as have we all. Marta had so many plans and dreams. She was independent and confident, and we loved her so much. It's never going to be the same without her. Losing Marta has changed our whole lives. He has taken Marta away from so many people who loved her. She loved our children, and he took her away from them having a relationship with them going forward. He deprived them of their auntie. He deprived us of our sister. He deprived our parents of their child. Our elder daughter knows Marta is with the angels, but our youngest doesn't even remember her because she was only 1 when he took her away from us. We were a really close family. We don't have any other family here. We only had Marta. So we would mark every celebration together. Christmas, birthdays, everything. Things are just completely different now. It's hard to describe. When Marta died, something beyond her died as well, and none of us will ever be the same.
Marta's last moments of life had to be completely terrifying, as she was being repeatedly stabbed, knowing there was no escape for her. No one deserves what she went through. No one. Powell selfishly murdered Marta for refusing to rekindle their relationship. The way he saw it, if he couldn't have her, no one else could either.
Domestic violence protection orders go live in Northamptonshire at the end of June. They're legally sanctioned, and basically it allows us to make a judgment where we can't prosecute a perpetrator, but we have fear for the victim, where we can make an application to a court for the court to require the perpetrator to move from their home address for between 14 and 28 days. The primary aim is to allow the victim some thinking time to protect themselves, to seek support and protect themselves and their children.
Violence against women and girls is a global pandemic. Almost 1 in 3, or 736 million women above the age of 15 across the world have experienced intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence at least once in their lifetime. More than 1 in 4 women have suffered violence at the hands of their partners. The most recent global estimates from the UN Office on Drugs and Crime shows that, on average, more than 5 women or girls are killed every hour, or 1 every 11 minutes, by someone in their own family. In 2020, approximately 47,000 women and girls were killed worldwide by their intimate partners or other family members. Domestic violence needs to come to an end. No one, regardless of age, sex, or social status, deserves to go through it. Through more awareness, education, and stricter laws, victims can be saved. No one deserves a violent end like Marta met. She was 31 years old, starting a new life that was quickly and savagely erased, all because of another person's anger and jealousy. A man who could not accept that Marta no longer wanted to be with him or go through his abuse. He couldn't accept that. He wouldn't accept that. Marta was just a simple woman in this world, but she was a beautiful person to their family. Again, if you know someone who is suffering from this type of violence or abuse, please seek immediate help. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like the video, comment down below with your take on it, and please subscribe to the channel. On your way out, don't forget to hit the notification bell in order to stay up to date each time we reveal a new shocking case. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's lurking in the shadows.